Hello and welcome to the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Our guest today is Dr. Sherrie Johnson, and she's author of the book, Authentic Leadership in the Workplace. Boy, do we need this now.
Yes.
We are walking back into a job situation or work situations that are completely different than the way we left pre-COVID.
Yes.
So let's talk about the different styles of leadership. There are certain types of leadership. Can you start off, and welcome, start off by telling us about the different types of leaders?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, specifically, I'm an expert in authentic leadership. And so an authentic leader is someone that's open, honest, transparent, and communicates well with employees. An authentic leader is someone that employees can respect and they can trust, and they tend to perform better in the workplace. And you're right, there are other different types of leadership styles. For example, transformational leadership. And that's a leader who doesn't mind change and who actually incorporates change in an organization. And you have servant leadership, you have ethical leadership. The list goes on and on. There are a number of leadership styles. But one of the things that I wanted to do was I researched authentic leadership. It's one of the newer leadership styles. It was actually developed in 2003, whereas with transformational leadership, that's been around for many, many years. And some might say that's like overdone. So authentic leadership actually came out of transformational leadership. And that's one of the newer ones that people really don't know much about. And it's a positive leadership style. And the research shows that employees tend to work better and perform better under positive leadership.
So here we are after COVID, and people have more choices now than they used to. The jobs numbers came in, and the jobs numbers a couple of weeks ago were really very good. And there's a lot out there to choose from. Do you think authentic leadership will cause employees to stay more than they would have?
Absolutely. Research has shown that employees leave because of bad leaders, unethical leaders. And when you have unethical leadership in your leadership command, then yes, employees are saying they've had enough and they are leaving. So when you can develop and you can incorporate a positive leadership style such as authentic leadership, then employees will perform better, they'll stay longer, you'll have less turnover, and it's great for morale. And it's also healthier too. It promotes a healthier workplace because research has also shown that some employees succumb to mental disorders because of unethical leadership and malicious behavior and malicious intent by leaders in the workplace.
Can you define for us what you mean by an unethical leader?
A leader that does not, have good standards. A leader that is undermining staff members. A leader that's not supporting staff members. A leader that doesn't have their best interest at heart. So a leader that does not have good morals. I'll give you an example from the book. When I wrote my book, it's research-based, and I interviewed 15 to 20 employees at different organizations. One employee that I interviewed, he said that one of the things that he did not like about his leader was he worked at a university, and there was money given. The football team had raised a lot of money. And so they took the profits and gave the money to the band. And he did not think that that was right because the football team needed uniforms and helmets, but they took their hard-earned money and gave it to another program. So they didn't think that that was right. Another example would be a university during COVID came back too soon. A week after bringing faculty and students back on campus, there was a COVID surge and they had to send them back home. So the faculty members were very upset because they felt that they put their health at risk, and they made a decision without consulting other people, and they thought that that was unethical behavior because they put their health and safety at risk. So those are some examples of what some employees called unethical behavior, and it made them not want to perform well in their workplace.
How important is teamwork, where the employer is thinking about everyone as a team opposed to whatever their own personal goals are.
Absolutely, that is an excellent point, and that does go with authentic leadership. It is very important to include employees in the decision-making process. It's important for employees to feel valued, and that their opinion and their considerations matter. And then they're more invested in the company. They're more invested in the organization, and they want to stay. And it's a healthier workplace. Collaboration is key. The more voices that you have, the better. The more diverse perspectives that you have, we're stronger together. So when employers can incorporate the employees' opinions and decisions, that is excellent. And that type of collaboration goes a long way in companies.
If you are seeking a management position, how do you know that the company practices authentic leadership?
Well, one of the good things is, do your research, do your homework before you interview for the job, or maybe even before you apply for the job. Check out their website, look at their mission statement, their vision statement, their values. Look at some of the bullet points on there. Integrity, honesty. Are you seeing some of these things on their website in their mission and vision statement? And then also, once you make it to the interview process, they do give you an opportunity to ask questions. This is a time where you want to ask those questions, to ask what type of leadership styles do they have within that organization. And sometimes employers will ask, what type of leadership style do you thrive under, or what do you look for in a supervisor, which is great, which is awesome. So there are places where you can ask.
What made you decide to turn this into a book? You said that you started off researching authentic leadership. What made you want to turn it into a book?
So when I was working on my doctorate and I was putting together my dissertation, you had to find a problem, okay, before you could have your dissertation. So I did my research, and I noticed that leadership was up there within the top 3 of problems, and ethical leadership. That was a huge issue. And more research was being done on leadership styles because that's so important. And so once I finished my dissertation, that was for academics, okay? So then I thought, this information is really important, and the average manager, supervisor, they need to know about it. And so I decided to turn my dissertation and make it more conversational, easy for the public to understand, and then that's when I decided to write the book using the research from my dissertation into something that's conversational and easy to understand, because that information is so very important.
And what the good thing about the research is not just Sherrie's opinion.
Right,
of
exactly.
Something. This is fact-based.
Yes, this is data-based, research-based, not just my opinion. That's another book for another time, but this is research-based, and it's important information. And not only that, but I also offer talks. I speak at conferences. I speak to corporations and companies about authentic leadership, and also offer online courses as well.
And what would you say, do you think we're going to stay where we are as far as employees having options, or is this just sort of a unique period in time that's going to come and go? So should we take advantage right now?
I think the tide has turned. I think times are changing, and I think with the great resignation and many employees leaving, I think employers are going to have to stand up and listen to what employees think. So I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's a fad. I think things are changing, and I don't think we're going back to the way it was. I think telework is here to stay, and I think if we want to keep employees and keep them happy, I think we're going to have to entertain that and work with it and grow from it. But I think COVID brought about some changes, and I don't think it's going to be easy to go back to the way things were. I think this is something new, and I think we need to push forward and embrace it, because at the end of the day, the employees make the organization, but the leaders set the tone, they set the example, and the employees follow that example. So it's important to have great leadership, authentic leadership at the top.
We hear a lot nowadays about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How does that work with authentic leadership?
It works perfectly with authentic leadership because, you know, diversity is important because it's important to hear different perspectives, and inclusivity is important because it's important to include everyone, even marginalized communities. And so that's what an authentic leader is. An authentic leader is someone who's transparent and who communicates with employees and listens to employees. So it actually works out very, very well.
How can we get more African Americans at the table in these major corporations?
Well, that is a very good point, and so needed. You know, the first thing we've got to do is we need for leaders, the people, the decision makers, to be open to diversity and inclusion, and to start taking some of these courses, educating themselves so that they understand. Okay, and not only just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Because right now it's like a hot button term that people just throw around. But we really need for leaders and the decision makers in the organizations to really understand it, embrace it, and start practicing it. There's tons of opportunities out there to even learn more. I just completed a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate with Cornell University, 8-week program. It was wonderful. And I learned so much. And there were a lot of other leaders of corporations in that class with me. And that was exciting to see, decision makers. And Cornell was teaching them why diversity matters, why it's important to have diverse leaders at the top. And so if we can get people to, if you don't know, educate yourself and then practice it. Don't just say it, but do it.
And the words sound good, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but really, what do they mean? How do you define that in the workplace?
What it means is diversity in your staffing, your recruiting, you know, start working with other agencies and organizations to recruit people, you know, maybe looking at your HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, and trying to tap in some of the resources there. You know, you got Casa de Maryland, you know, making sure they know that you have job opportunities open. Start, you know, getting the information out to these different organizations to let them know there's opportunities available. Also, even when you're within the company, sometimes minorities don't feel comfortable speaking up in meetings. You know, making it a safe workplace to where they feel comfortable to speak up and offer their decisions. And if they don't speak up, call on them. Ask them what they think, you know. Don't have meetings and then have them in a corner and just have them to sit there. But, you know, incorporate that inclusivity and encourage them to be a part. Ask them for their decisions. Ask them what they think. You know, so it starts with the hiring, and then even when they get in there, let them have a seat at the table, because different perspectives matter. Different perspectives and opinions from different people make your organization stronger.
You know, you talked about unethical leaders, and that goes back to unethical leadership, where people are afraid to say something because if you say something, you feel, because I used to all the time, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, starting out as you know, as a new broadcaster, you're afraid to say something, afraid of being labeled. And I have been labeled as the angry black woman at several jobs. So you find yourself kind of holding back from saying things because you don't want to be labeled or you don't want someone to get back at you.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about tackling microaggressions and unconscious bias. You know, these are things that we need to learn about and address. And people should be free to speak their mind, offer their opinion, even if it's a different opinion. And there shouldn't be any fear of retribution or retaliation because you do speak up. And so that's why with diversity, equity, inclusion, those are things that we have to tackle, because there's so many people, people of color, that are sitting in meetings and not saying anything. And that's what I mean. We need to draw those people out, make them have a safe place where they can offer their good opinions.
Also, in authentic leadership, is there any room for mentorship? I find that that's so important for when you walk into a job situation that's unfamiliar to you, for someone to take you on as a mentor. And I think that's a lot of times the difference between getting that promotion and not getting that promotion. You have no one looking out for you.
Oh, that's a very good point. That goes back under support, getting the support you need to succeed. And absolutely, that goes under authentic leadership. That goes under any type of leadership. It would be a good idea to have a mentor, someone to guide and support you. That is an excellent idea. And many companies are starting to provide mentors for new leaders, and that is an excellent opportunity. Someone you can ask questions to and when you're new and feeling your way around, but that is an excellent idea.
What about people transitioning in this period of time? Let's just say you were doing one thing and now you find this a good opportunity, this time is a good time to move on to something that you might like more. It's not about, well, I got to pay my car note, so I'm going to stay at this job that I really hate. How do you make that transition, and have you helped people over the years in making that transition?
Absolutely. That is so important. It's so important to be happy. You know, stress kills. And so if you find something that you think you would be better at or would make you happy, you know what, you should go for it. And I have helped people with that. I'm also a career coach as well as an authentic leadership speaker. I was a journalist, a reporter, and anchor for 20 years, and then I moved into public relations and communications. So I help journalists transition out of news into public relations or communications, and that has been very fulfilling, and I've helped them with that transition. And nowadays, many people they are ready to make the change. They are ready to step into something new. And of course, I have my website, www.sherriespeaks.com, but I definitely help folks that are ready to transition in their career. And it's important for people to be happy. It's important for people to be successful. And sometimes change can be scary.
It is not sometimes, but it is.
But it is
just a fact.
It's
it
necessary,
is scary, especially if you've been doing one thing
for so long.
I know. And you want to do something else, and you're ready to do something else.
I've been there.
But it is so scary.
It is, to learn something new. I remember when I was a reporter, you know, I could, report and anchor with my eyes closed. I didn't even have to think about it. I was on autopilot. And then you switch over into something else and you have to learn something new. But it's okay. It's okay. And you know what? Some 9-10 years later, I'm so happy that I did. I'm so much happier and wish I had did it sooner. So, you just got to take the plunge and go for it,
We've touched a little bit on mental health. How can employers be more sensitive to that? A lot of people will hide how they're really feeling. They may be depressed. They may be suffering silently because they're afraid that that's going to be a strike against them if they let the employer know that, hey, I'm going through something.
Well, one of the things with authentic leadership that I found in my research is sometimes the employers, the leaders, are the problem, are at the hands of it. Some employees succumb to mental disorders at the hands of malicious behavior of a leader. Someone that is gaslighting them or causing problems in the workplace and not making it easy for them, that can cause mental disorders. But you know what? Many companies have programs, EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where people can go and talk to someone for free, or just talking to your doctor, your own doctor, and letting them know what's going on, and then they also can put you in touch with someone to talk to. But you're right, that's why positive leadership, such as authentic leadership in the workplace, is so important, because some employees are suffering silently at the hands of unethical leaders.
One of the reasons why I was excited about having you come is because it brought back memories. For me, I was working for a radio station in Baltimore many years ago, and I was being sexually harassed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. I felt very much alone in that place. And what do you do? Where do you turn?
Right. Yeah, and that's why ethical leadership is so important, and that's why I'm out here trying to educate companies and corporations and leaders about the importance of it, because you just never know how you affect someone. But it is important for employees to speak up. Okay, don't be quiet about it, and that may not be the place for you. Okay, they're talking about the Great Resignation. People are not taking it anymore.
Well, tell
They're
us,
leaving.
what is the Great Resignation? Because we've mentioned it a couple of times.
That's employees leaving jobs. That's employees saying, I am not happy and I'm not getting what I need here, and that's employees leaving. Because whether they're not getting enough teleworking, whether they feel like their employers are not listening to them, or they're just not happy. I mean, you also have millennials in the workforce now, and if people are not getting what they need and they're not feeling satisfied, they are leaving, they're walking, and that's what's happening with the Great Resignation. They're not just staying anymore and putting up with things, and that's why it's important for leaders who set the example and set the tone to embrace a more positive leadership style.
There are a lot of benefits in working from home, but one of the disadvantages I find is that you don't have that one-on-one with your employer, with your manager, the way you did when you would go and see that person in the office every day. How do you cultivate those relationships when you're at home 3 days a week and are just coming in 2 days a week? How do you, and a lot of decisions are made at the coffee machine. You know what I mean? But you don't have that anymore. So how, in this new day and time, do you cultivate those relationships and have authentic leadership?
Well, you know, the good thing is we are transitioning, and now it's like a hybrid situation. So you made a good point. You know, maybe you're teleworking 3 days a week, but you're in the office 2 days a week. So you make very good time of those 2 days a week that they are in the office. That's when you have your one-on-ones. That's when you have your staff meetings. That's when you have your in-person FaceTime where you can talk to them, where you can stop by their desk, see how their weekend's going, what plans do they have this weekend. That's when you can build those relationships, is when they are in the office. And that's the beauty of it, is a lot of people are moving towards hybrid, to where it's not 100% teleworking. But as long as you have them coming in a couple days a week, make very good use of those days that they are in the office. And that's when you're doing your one-on-one and your face-to-face communication. But even if they are teleworking 100% and they are not in the office, but those Zooms, making sure they have their camera on, those phone calls, but even just any type of communicating, such as virtual meetings, is still good. But if they are in the office a couple days, make very good use of that time for your in-person meetings.
I've also found that nowadays our modes of communications, sometimes you can misunderstand things. You send an email and the person sends an email back, and it might come in a tone that person didn't mean. But it's not like you're having a one-on-one conversation where you can absolutely tell the tone.
Yes.
How do we overcome that?
Yeah, well, you know, that's really, you're going to have to pick and choose. Some things are not an email. I often have people say, you know what, I'm going to pick up the phone and give that person a call. So some things are a phone call, and some things are, let's hop on a Zoom, let's hop on a virtual meeting. Some things are not meant for email, and you're absolutely right, because it can be misinterpreted. So that's when you'll have to make the decision as the communicator, hey, I want to get this message across, but you know what? It may not come across so well in an email. Let me pick up the phone and call this person, or let me, you know, hop on a quick Teams meeting. There are so many virtual meetings out there now. You know, you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got Skype, you've got Zoom, you've got WebEx, and there's so many other ones. You've got FaceTime on your phone. So there's so many different ways that you can communicate with people, to where you don't have to just rely on email. And then that way too, people can see each other's facial expressions and understand where they're coming from.
What made you decide to branch out on your own? You come from a background where you've worked for several school systems. You just told us that you also as well have done television.
Yes.
What made you decide, I'm going to start my own, I'm going to do my own thing?
Well, you know, so I launched a company, Sherrie Johnson Communications LLC. I'm an authentic leadership speaker, a career coach, and an executive leadership coach. And I also offer online courses as well. And I have my own website, www.sherriespeaks.com. And I just thought, you know what, after I received my doctorate, I received all of this information and my research, I said, you know what, I want to get this information out to the public. And I enjoy speaking to companies and speaking at conferences. I enjoy speaking to them and letting them know the research and the information that I have found. And I enjoy working one-on-one with supervisors, managers, CEOs, and leaders, educating them, because sometimes people just don't know. And so I've always had like an entrepreneur spirit. I've always had an entrepreneur spirit, and it's what makes me happy. And so I'm just very, very excited. It's taken off, and I'm just really excited to be able to educate folks and help someone else with the information and knowledge that I have gained and through my research.
We'll put all of the book information on at the end of the program. But the final question is, where do you go from here? Where are you going from here?
No
Is
place.
there going to be a second book?
There is going to be a second book. There's going to be a second book. This book talks a little bit about universities and colleges and administrators at public universities. I am beginning to work on my next book. My next book is going to be all inclusive, nonprofit, for-profit, corporations, government, non-government. So I am working on my second book and also interviewing more employees, especially post-COVID. So yes, stay tuned. I just launched that book, but I'm already working on book number 2.
So this is going to be a broader version of what you've just written?
Yes.
You're saying that this one is geared more towards younger folks.
Well, no, this one is geared more towards different companies. So this current book, I went to educators at public universities. And so the next one is going to be more broad, encompassing different companies.
Very good. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to talk with you and be here. Thank you.
So glad to have a broader explanation of what authentic leadership is.
Yes, definitely a great positive leadership style, one that, just more people should embrace.
Thank you for joining us. We've been talking to Dr. Sherrie Johnson, and the name of her book is Authentic Leadership in the Workplace. We will put that information at the end of the program, and it is now available.
Yes, it is now available. It has launched, ready to be bought.
How does that make you feel?
Excellent. So excited. So excited.
A feeling of accomplishment.
It definitely does.
You've been watching the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Have a great day.